Women's IT World. Women's IT World. Women's IT World.
Welcome to episode 4 of season 5 from the Women's IP World Annual Podcast, a podcast series that's shining a spotlight on women in intellectual property. I'm your host, Michele Katz, and I'm the co-founding partner of the law firm Advitam IP, which in Latin means intellectual property for life. We are based out of the US in Chicago. Me and my firm are hosting this podcast on behalf of Northlands Media PR and Marketing Limited, based out of the UK and London. They are the publishers of the Women's IP World Annual and the Global IP Matrix magazine. You can find the 2025 edition of the Women's IP World Annual online at www.womensipworld.com. Again, that's www.womensipworld.com. And you can listen to the annual as well on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, when you're attending conferences in person, to check out the North Ends Media booth. At most major IP conferences, you will see us there. I would like to welcome Anomi Wanigasekera, Senior Partner and Head of the Intellectual Property Division of Julius Creasy in Sri Lanka. Thank you for joining us, Anomi.
You're welcome, Michelle.
So, did I read this correctly that your firm was founded in 1879?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow. Okay. So, I want to hear about, the founding of your firm. But before we do that, you're located in Sri Lanka. For those that might be a little geographically challenged, please tell us, where is Sri Lanka?
Okay. So Sri Lanka is a little island in the Indian Ocean at the southern tip of, right below India. And we are an independent democratic republic. And we have about 23 million population. And it's a tropical country close to the equator. Uh, and we have good history. We have been, like, it's a very touristic place. A lot of tourists enjoy. People are very friendly and warm, and it's a multi-ethnic, but majority are Sinhalese. Even the religions, the main religion is Buddhist, but we have Catholics, is Muslims, and Hindus. So it's a very friendly and a warm country for people to visit.
So warm as far as you're on the equator, but also warm as far as the reputation of the people, the temperament of the people are also warm.
Yes,
Hmm. Now, were you born and raised there?
yes.
Okay. So I don't know when Sri Lanka became independent by any. I'm not no history test here, but if you happen to know offhand.
Yes, we were under the British. Earlier, it was like we were under the Portuguese, then the Dutch, and then British, and we got independence in 1948. And we are a Commonwealth country, and it became totally a republic in 1978. So 1948 we gained independence.
Wow, okay. But and yet the firm was founded prior to that. I mean, many years prior to that in 1879. So can you tell us about the founder,
Yeah,
the
sure.
founding of the firm?
So it said 1879. It was founded by two British partners, Mr. Julius and Harry Creasy. So both of them were the founder partners, and they were till about the 1960s. The British partners continued, and after independence, a few more years, and thereafter the Sri Lankan partners took over. But having said that, we still maintain the original founders' names, and we step on to 147th year next year. That's in January.
I'm celebrating my 14th year of my firm in March.
All right.
Started in 2012. So, wow, that you have there's an incredible history. I wonder if the firm, I mean, when you said, I know that you're the head of the intellectual property division, meaning that there's other divisions.
Yes.
Did the firm start as a general practice, and how has it evolved to today?
So it had been, from the day one, it had been a full service law firm. So those days it was like notary publics and solicitors firm. So
Mhm.
we have been working, and we have been having the separate divisions, and intellectual property had been there. Then it was like divided, like trademarks, patents, copyright, all those we have been handling from the inception, because in Sri Lanka, the first patent dates back to 1861.
Okay, wow. So, I mean, Mr. Julius and Mr. Creasy have, really they were pioneers in and
It's
from the very beginning.
so not only intellectual property, they have been doing a real estate, litigation, all aspects of law, and we continue to be
All
a full
aspects.
service law firm even today.
Well, how did you get into intellectual property, and have you dabbled in other areas?
Well, it had been by chance that when I just took my oaths and finished my bar exams and took oaths as an attorney at law. And when I applied to our firm, I was lucky that the vacancy was at the intellectual property division. So I was lucky, I would say.
Well, okay. So did you take any intellectual property courses when you were like in your study?
So at the
Okay.
Sri Lanka Law College, when I was a student, we didn't have intellectual property as a subject then, but we had commercial law, and in the subject within the commercial law there was a little bit of IP which was touched, not as IP like trademarks, and the reference was very very vague. But now intellectual property is in the curriculum and it is a subject. So I'm talking about 4 decades ago.
So you've been with Julius and Creasy your whole career?
That's right. Yes, this is
Wow.
my first job and I'm still there.
Here we call it you're a lifer. That's what we say. Oh, he's a lifer, which nowadays, and I'm sure there's people that are listening who are like nodding their heads, you don't see that so much like it used to be, right? Where like that first job out of law school, and then you really devote your whole, working life, your whole life.
Yes, nowadays it's very hard to get
Mhm.
such people staying on, not to the lifetime. Even maybe the current trend is not. I think if somebody says 5 years, that's a long time.
Yes, yes, the ones that are saying that probably do think it's a long time. So, you're head of intellectual property. Obviously, you didn't start that, in that position, as a new attorney. Have you over the years developed a particular specialty within IP or an area that you're just very passionate about?
So actually when later on I did my further studies in intellectual property, and then international trade law. I did my master's in international trade law. So right now we have special courses for the younger generations, specializing in IP in the University of Sri Lanka, as well as international universities, as we all know.
Well, and with, international, I mean, we're inherently international. That was one of the reasons why I went into intellectual property because I was looking for something that was international, right? And, creativity all around the world with the internet. You have a website, and most would argue you're international, right? Um, because your wares and services may be offered to people all over the world. And then we get into online safety. Are those products that we see, are they legitimate? So, the international trade has gotten more complicated with the advances in technology. And we will get to your article, which is about online safety, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. And we will, after this short break, we're going to delve into your article, which for those that would like to follow along is on page 86. Be right back.
Please mind the gap.
The Global IP magazine is delighted to welcome you to London for this year's INTA annual meeting. You have travelled from across the world to be part of this extraordinary event, and now we want to help you make the most of your time here by showcasing your expertise in the INTA Conference Special Edition of the Global IP magazine. There is no better way to break the ice, start meaningful conversations, and share the important work you do than by being featured in our largest conference edition of the year, available in print, digital, and audio formats. We are proud to be the official media partners for INTA in London, and we will be exhibiting at booth 1012. Since 2018, we have worked with the world's leading intellectual property law firms and service providers. Today, the Global IP magazine is the most frequently distributed printed magazine in the industry, and we are ranked number 1 on Google for intellectual property magazines. Now is your chance to be part of this standout edition, be seen and heard by the global IP community attending INTA. Contact us today to feature your law firm or IP service in our most prominent edition of the year. Call 0044 203 813 0457 or email gip.magazine@northansprmarketing.com. Visit our website for more information at www.globalipmagazine.com. We look forward to seeing you at booth 1012 during this year's INTA annual meeting.
Welcome back. Okay, so we are going to be talking about Anomi's article in the 2025 edition, an overview of the Online Safety Act of Sri Lanka. So let's dive in. What is the Online Safety Act?
So, Online Safety Act came into operation in Sri Lanka uh, very in 2024, and it gives on the Sri Lanka internet safety aim to regulating the citizens on internet usage. So it was announced in 2023, but it is still in the very early stages.
Yes, I mean it's like a newborn baby, um, as these
Yes.
things go.
So the basics are like to keep the personal information, the professional information to be limited. Then the privacy comes in. Then it also refers a bit on borrowings, and to be very careful once you use, because you have to be very mindful of what you're doing, and the privacy is looked at in a very big way.
So was there something in particular that occurred, where, then lobbyists or, the policymakers were thinking, okay, we actually need to create a formal act for Sri Lankan citizens, right? What was there something in particular that occurred?
So basically they say that it has to be lawful and fair, and there should be transparency, but there should be limitations, and then data has to be used very carefully, and it should be accurate.
So does the Online Safety Act also include provisions on how to handle data, like data protections?
So there is no specific section to refer to that.
Okay.
Mainly, it has been brought in to curb like cyber crimes, and to minimize misinformation, and also to take out online harmful content.
And then who deems whether the content is harmful? Is there like a committee or a governmental body?
There is an online safety commission.
Okay. Did Sri Lanka model the Online Safety Act after, another countries? I mean, how did they, or is this all like independent creation? That's my first part of my question. And then is there, an effort to harmonize globally the safeguard?
So they do harmonize globally. They check on the parallels, and then they do when they draft documents in Sri Lanka, the acts, they do check on the international parallel
See what
treaties.
else, it's why do we start from scratch when there are other jurisdictions perhaps that may have already developed something that seems reasonable and workable? Is that the idea?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, you're right.
So the stats in your article were blowing my mind. Okay. 5.3 billion internet users, which equated to 65% of the world's population. So on one hand, I'm like, wow, that is huge. And then when you look at the percentage and you and you think about who and how you use your electronics, and various devices, and do you really know a single person who doesn't use some kind of phone, like, with internet, whether it be laptop, iPad type of, device, or, of course, your phone, those types of things. And you think, well, it could actually be a lot more.
Yes, you're right. I think it's so hard to find a person without a phone. uh,
Not in our world.
maybe in the
Yeah.
maybe in the remote area, even in the remotest, they will have a phone with them.
Right.
And not just a phone, they might have a simple phone without it may not be a smartphone, but they always, because of their children, in Sri Lanka, the children, the education is important, and parents, even in the most remote areas, want the children to study. So now, since there are these online study facilities, they tend to purchase smartphones.
Right. And yes. And well, for parents out there, you can turn on the screen time. So if it's time to study, your phone becomes a paperweight for all intensive purposes.
And that is a very, I mean, children love it, because sometimes there are restrictions in the usage here by the
Mhm.
parents,
Mhm.
in more remote areas, or maybe not in this urban areas, I would call. But because of the study option, they always get that opportunity.
Yes, and as a parent, I appreciate having that option when you just can't seem to get their attention, and then all of a sudden they can hear you when you turn on the screen time. So okay. So we've got so many users, 5.3 billion. It's it's chaos. I mean, many people would say, "Oh, this is complete chaos. We need to have," and there's bad actors out there. So how do we handle it? Sri Lanka puts together their finest minds on this for the Online Safety Act. Now, the article that you wrote, that you co-wrote, it talks about pros and cons of what people are saying about the act. Can you go over a little bit between the those that are like, yay, I'm in favor of this, or no, or here's what we need to be careful about?
So the criticisms, if you want me to comment on, like they
Yeah.
say sometimes that there are like vague definitions, and the Online Safety Commission has arbitrary powers, that sort of things they say. So then about especially about the journalists and the critics, then there may be different groups who criticize. So there can be misinterpretations.
So what are those criticisms? Like what are the
So
criticizing?
these are the like criticisms are like online. They can criticize maybe some people say that with this act coming in, there will be a loss of freedom of speech.
Mhm.
So some say that they don't have like journalists we won't have will not be able to express. So but that crosses other laws also, other areas, the the freedom of speech, and it should not be defamatory. Then it crosses, we'll have to check as to what statement that has been made, what is vulnerable. So those will have to be looked at. About then the human rights groups can speak on, and are they free to talk.
Yeah, so curbing speech is, oh, that's that fine line. Are we encroaching on free speech? We hear that a lot here too in the US. I wonder, how does one enforce the act? So is this something that is like through the online platform you lodge a complaint, and you base your complaint on the Online Safety Act, or is this something that's brought into the courts
Or it can be online
online?
abuse, harassment. Yeah.
Okay.
So there is this online safety commission. So it's a 5-member commission appointed by the president, presidentially appointed by issuing notice to remove prohibited content and disable access, online access to certain locations. Those are the powers that they have. And there are, of course, penalties. It is an offense and can lead to imprisonment up to 5 to 20 years, depending on what is looked at as a crime.
Considered a criminal offense?
Yes, it's a
Oh,
criminal offense.
okay.
So strict penalties. Strict penalties are for like mainly like if there is something like child abuse,
Mm,
depending on the crime.
okay. So if I'm Sri Lankan and I'm in Sri Lanka though, and that it's a Sri Lankan webs, like chat or something, where that seems to be the easy case scenario, where then you can file with the portal that is for the Online Safety Act, or to the commission. What if you are outside of the, like, what if what if you're like just me here in Chicago, not on the equator, not in the warm weather right now. Um Sorry, that was just a side note too. Boo, it's cold here. But but it's a Sri Lankan website or something like that, or a Sri Lankan citizen who is violating the Online Safety Act. Like, so where, I guess, when does the Online Safety Act become applicable?
So it depends on whether we could bring in these offences under the definitions and prove. So it's not just you have to bring in an action in court and just to the
Mhm.
satisfaction of the judge to make an order. So these are provisions, but before that it will be referred to the commission.
Okay. And I'm wondering if eventually there'll be like commissions talking to each other. Just kind of like like ICANN for WIPO for domain name disputes.
Yeah.
It seems to me this, if we don't already have something like this, to have kind of a worldwide, because otherwise, it seems like you may not have standing to take action, right? Depending on the situation, and the reality of taking some of these things to court are probably quite minimal, I would imagine.
Yeah. So we haven't we I don't think we have tried anything in courts as yet, as this is very
Hmm.
new.
Hmm. Okay, well, time will tell. And so we await to hear more news from you, perhaps in a in a future edition of the Women's IP World
Yeah.
Annual. This is our time for today, but thank you very much for this introduction. It seems to me like there's a lot more to um, to investigate here, especially as time goes on. and we are moving at a faster and faster pace.
Yes, so if I may add on to this, so there is this act, it is designed to regulate online content and to dedicate it to a regulatory body. So it has been it has been a subject with controversy because
Mm-hmm.
there are pros and cons, as I told you, there are concerns and criticisms. So we are yet to see the outcome and how it would evolve.
Yes, I'm looking forward to those updates. And I would suggest that we put a pin in this, and in a later edition, please continue, inform us, because I think we're going to be seeing a lot of jurisdictions trying to tighten some of the reins, and there are a lot of pros and cons, and we're walking this tight rope. Um, your article, I encourage people to check it out, because Anomi does go through a lot of, obviously in more detail than we have time for today. But before we leave, Anomi, my final question for you today is what your mantra is, whether you have some words that you think of that motivate you, inspire you. You've had a long career in intellectual property, and maybe you could lend us some words to inspire others.
Okay, so what I could say is that you should balance your life and then do your work so that you won't get stressed, and you balance your family and the workplace. And I think I have been able to do that over the years.
Well, congratulations to you. We'll have to have a side conversation at some point, maybe when I see you at a in-person conference, because I always talk about exactly what you're saying, and I call it, oh, you mean work-life imbalance? So yes, let's that is inspirational for many of us, especially those of us that are also taking care of perhaps children, parents, or other relatives, other loved ones, friends in our lives. So I want to thank you for that, Anomi, and thank you for your time today and your insight and educating us on the Online Safety Act and telling us about your career and your firm. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you for allowing us to shine a spotlight on you and your career in IP. It's quite inspirational, your dedication to the field. To our listeners, please like, follow, share with your friends and colleagues, but also feel free to send comments and questions. Till next time.
Thank you.
The women's IP world. The women's IP world.
You have been listening to the Women's IP World podcast, hosted by Michele Katz from Advitam IP in Chicago, USA, on behalf of Northlands Media PR and Marketing Limited in the United Kingdom.
The women's